Hello and welcome everybody to Wealth is a Team Sport Live. You know, if you're new to the show, I was just going to say, I believe that one of the most valuable gifts that you can give yourself is peace of mind by learning from other people. So, thinking bigger thoughts, life is hard enough. And so I like to interview different people and get their pearls of wisdom because you never know where you're going to get a nugget that's going to really help things go. In my book, Money Moves, that's one of the things I talk about is, whatever you're doing, you always have to have that team that supports you. So obviously you need that team that supports you financially and helps, in that realm. But whatever your area of expertise is, you're going to have those teams that develop. So we're going to be talking today with Matt Frentheway, and he's going to be sharing about franchising with us. So it's going to be pretty cool. So I'm Tara Nolan, and I'm known as the advisor who helps you achieve and retain the lifestyle you want. And so for success in my business, it really starts with relationships. And trust is one of those key ingredients to having good relationships. And you can't just say, hey, trust me. Trust starts with education and sharing stories and kind of getting to know someone's values that drive what they do. So that's what this show is going to be all about. Let me take a minute and read a little bit about Matt's bio. His full bio is going to be posted for you guys to see it, but just so you kind of get an idea of the expert that we're dealing with today. So as an adult, Matt's learned many lessons and has always been inspired by meaningful and profound events. His eyewitness to 9/11 was a turning point in his life. After 9/11, he started on a mission to help others and to have a positive impact on others' lives by working with them, ultimately in his career as a franchise consultant. Matt's experience as an independent business owner, franchisee, and franchisor has given him the ability as a business consultant to assist his candidates in achieving their financial goals. He enjoys matching his candidates to appropriate franchise opportunities to help them achieve their dreams, and he does this for free. He provides others with outstanding customer service while conducting himself with professionalism and integrity. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
So, let's just jump right in. So after reading your background, you have a lot of experience and, it looks like it kind of got kicked off with 9/11 and then now you're doing franchising. Can you just kind of walk us through that? That's like a super interesting origin story, if you will.
Well, they say that the only constant in life is change, right? And that's certainly been represented. My life's represented that. I've changed a lot. But to begin with, I came out of college. My goal was to be a veterinarian, and I had a year to wait to go to veterinary school. And I started adding up the numbers on how much it's going to cost to get through school, and then I'd have to start my own business, how much it costs to open up a business.
Okay, let me just stop you right there for a second. So I was going to be a veterinarian when I was in high school. And then I saw the Thunderbirds fly and I decided I wanted to be a pilot. But so funny, I didn't know we had that connector point. But please continue.
It sounds to me like you didn't go down that path just like I did. But anyways, I looked at the financial obligation or commitment to get through school and everything. And at the end, I'd be a business owner. And I decided I liked animals, but I didn't like animals that much to take on that kind of financial and time commitment. And so I pivoted, and I had a couple jobs. I had a couple small businesses, and then I became a financial advisor. I learned that I really enjoy business and I really enjoy helping people. And so financial advising at the time was my answer to that. I worked for a company called Weber. It's now UBS, a large global company. But I was out in New York City during 9/11. I saw the Twin Towers fall with my own eyes. I was actually on top of the Twin Towers the day before sightseeing. So that was, and then I was there for 3 weeks after all that happened to see all the aftermath. But that was a really big pivotal moment in my life. The thing that made me pivot away from financial advising is just all the client calls and meetings I had to field after that. People were super worried about their money, and it just, just a bunch of people, thousands of people just died, and the stock market's falling, and rightly so, people are worried about their money, but there's more important things. And I didn't have anything really I could help them with their money other than tell them to take it out of the stock market or tell them to, if they're long-term, stay invested, because history has shown that it's going to be okay. but I didn't have any control over helping them. And eventually I fell out of I lost my passion for financial advising for that reason. And so I moved on. Eventually I became a real estate appraiser and opened up a real estate appraisal company and spent a lot of time growing that. But then 2008 happened. I'm trying to abbreviate this as quick as possible, but 2008 happened. The real estate recession really affected me in the appraisal business. That time I said, I'm never going to be in the same situation again where my income solely dependent on one income stream.
Yeah.
And also at the whim of what the government agencies decide to do. So I weathered through that storm. But when I came out of it around 2013 or so, I had a friend that owned a small boxing fitness studio here in Utah. And he asked me to be his partner. That was my answer to not have one income source. I'd been looking for a few years, and this was the answer. So I partnered with him, and we made him and his brother and I made this one location super successful. And we were thinking, well, it's so successful, let's open up other locations. But the problem is that we didn't have the capital ourselves to open up other locations. So we started looking at alternatives, and that's when franchising came into my life. Franchising was a great way to grow our brand, help other people be successful, but also make money too. So we eventually made it a national franchise back in 2018. There's several locations. It's called Legends Boxing across the nation now. I eventually sold my interest in the franchise out, but I stayed a franchisee. And with that extra time of not being a franchisor, I put that into being a franchise consultant where I still get to work with business and I really get to help people like I like to do, but have a little more control over it.
So I'm going to jump on a couple of things there. And I am really looking forward to this conversation. So it's interesting that you were in financial advising and then you left, because I totally resonate with that. Because when I started with the first company, it was just kind of very cookie cutter. Like everyone was put in some insurance and people were put into an IRA. And I kind of felt like a monkey could do that. And I remember asking the guy that I was working with, like, when do we get to the part where we really start helping people? Because everyone's different. And the look in his eye, like he didn't understand the question. And I had come to it as a real estate investor. And so real estate investing really made sense to me. And you learn about other people's money and leverage and accelerating your wealth. And when I came into finance, it was really interesting that a lot of those concepts weren't being taught for the personal finance world, going back to being driven by how do people get paid, right? It's always a great question to ask. And so that really drove me to start my own business, my own registered investment advisory, because I wanted to do something holistic and not be beholden to any one company about that. And so it's interesting, is like the same things that you didn't like about it, I didn't like about it. And with my military background as a logistics planner, I see everything strategically, and there's a lot of things I help people with that I don't get paid for, but it all has to come together to help people reach that goal.
Yep.
And so I love that you said that. And then you kind of hit on that, like the income streams, like you don't want just one income stream. So like that's huge that you brought that up. One of the things I'm interested to ask you, because as I was exploring options, I looked at franchising, and it was a challenge because it was like this chicken and egg situation where, I forget who I got connected with. And they were like, well, how much money do you have? I'm like, well, I have some money, but I can have access to more money. And I would say, well, how much money do I need? And it was like back and forth. I was like, if you tell me what my opportunities are, then I'll figure out how to get the money. So how do you deal with that when you have somebody like who's new and kind of has questions like that?
Yeah, well, so there is financial requirements to get into a franchise.
Sure.
And it's different for every franchise, but they have two basic requirements. That's the liquidity and a person's net worth. And what they define liquidity as the person's cash, stocks, bonds, precious metals, if they have any, retirement funds even count, and that's what their liquidity is. And they don't expect a person to spend all that money on the franchise, but they want to make sure the person's solid financially. So I like to share with my candidates, what the basic financial qualifications are for the franchises I work with. And if they don't have those financial qualifications by themselves, or if they don't think they would have that if they could find a partner, we talk about that too. Then we talk about a plan to put together so that they can have those qualifications and eventually make it happen for them.
So I love that you do that. And, how do you because you don't do that. You do this for a living. You've got your bills to pay. So do you have almost like a coaching fee that you'll offer somebody who's maybe not quite there, but's interested and help them set up a plan for success? Is that something that you offer?
I offer it. It's not, I don't charge for it. My services are free, and I'm willing to spend the extra time with somebody. If they really want to own a franchise and be a business owner, and they're willing to put in the work to make it happen, then I'm happy to work with them. Like I said, I really love helping people. And so that feeds my soul, and I don't charge for that. No.
Yeah. So if I'd have met you 10 years ago, I might be in a franchise right now.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on that. I like that. What do you feel like are your core values, or the things that are just really important to you that really drive your success?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you asked that. And I'm almost 50, and it's taken a lifetime to come up with my core values. And sometimes they change, but these two things have really stuck with me over the past several years, ever since I started thinking about my core values. The first one is I want to leave a positive footprint on everybody I come across. Whether it's just my having positive energy, saying a nice thing to them, or just leaving them in a better state than when I originally met them. My other core value is I call it be happy first. And this isn't something I coined myself. It came from a book that changed my life called The Happiness Advantage. It's a great book to read, but it changed my perspective in that a lot of times people think that they'll be happy when they achieve certain things. The problem is they achieve these things, and then the hurdle moves or the goal moves, and now they're not going to be happy until they achieve another thing. And a person's never happy because they're just achieving stuff the whole life. What that book taught me is to flip the switch and learn how to be happy now, no matter what I achieve. If I'm happy now, then I will always be happy. And of course, I can go after my dreams and goals and stuff, but I can't set that as a reason for me to be happy.
I love that because, because if you're always waiting for that thing to happen in the future, it's never going to work very well. And then how do you feel like that you've taken that though and transferred that to your business and the people that you connect with and get set up?
My core values, is that what you're how I transfer that? Well, leave a positive footprint on everybody I come across. Whether I do business with somebody or not, I always try to leave them with information they didn't have before they met me. I want to provide value for them, and I don't care whether we work together or not. So that's how I handle that first core value, leaving a positive footprint on people. And the second core value is, internally, I just recognize that I have these financial goals and things like that, but I have to be happy now. And I just focus on, what makes me happy now, and gratitude. I like to write 3 things that I'm grateful for every single day, and that keeps me in my happy space, no matter really what my life is, what's happening in my life. And
I have a gratitude journal as well.
That positive attitude translates over to my candidates, and I can think clearer and be a better resource for them.
That's fabulous that you do that. And, I have the gratitude journal, and it's interesting how these little practices really help, and it gets transferred in the system. So I'm kind of interested to know your thoughts on, because you talked about value. Mm-hmm. And one of the conversations I like to have with people is about fees versus outcomes or value, because a lot of people want to be smart shoppers, and they shop around for fees. And I'm like, you want to be cognizant, and fees are important, but that's not the real question. The real question is, if you pay a fee and you're getting value, that's good. The challenge is if you pay a fee and you're getting no value. How would you have that kind of conversation with people, especially, as they're looking at getting into a franchise and going, that feels like a lot of entry cost. But if you get to the other side of it, where's the value? How do you have that conversation?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. That's one of the things I like to discuss with my candidates as they're going through the process too, is they have to understand the franchise fee they're paying to the franchise and the royalties they're going to pay perpetually. They need to feel good about paying that they're getting value from the franchisor paying that. And so I have them look at things like, okay, so once you buy the franchise, what do the systems look like once you start? What kind of support are they going to give you in opening your location and being successful? Once you open your location, are they going to hold your hand and help you, give you feedback as you mature in your business? Once you mature in your business, what kind of value do they add to you then for the fees that they're charging? Do they have yearly conventions? Do they do training for you, continuing education, all sorts of, business ideas? Anyways, that's all stuff a franchisor can do, but the candidate needs to recognize that what they're paying for, they need to get something for it that they are excited about. And then I talk about the amount of royalties. Some franchises charge more than others, but I tell my candidates, don't focus on the amount they're charging. Focus on what kind of value are you getting for that. So if you're paying 6% royalty to a company that gives you no support, and another company you're paying 10% and you get all the support in the world, which one is more value to you? That's the things I like to drill down into.
So that's huge. So my next question kind of goes back to developing trust, because it's important for my business and I'm sure it's important for yours. How do you help people? Like, you can connect people, but ultimately they have to kind of make that judgment and say, hey, this person I resonate with, I think I'm going to work with them. How do you coach people into that? And the reason I ask is, in my book, Money Moves, that I've just published, that's one of the things I want people to take away from the book is, here's a way to get very organized and clear with what you want, so that when you go sit down with a potential financial professional, you can kind of interview them and just see if it's going to be a good fit. Because it's not always just about who has the knowledge. There's also that emotional piece, that connection that has to happen.
Totally agree. It's just not dollars and cents. When you become a franchisee, you're becoming a business partner with a franchisor. And even though the dollars and cents may look great, if you don't fit in with their culture, if you don't resonate with their leadership, it's not going to be as time to find another company that you do resonate with. And so the way that a candidate will find out if they resonate with somebody, and this is how I coach them, is part of when they are doing their due diligence on the franchise, they get an opportunity, or they should get an opportunity, if it's a good franchise, to talk to other franchisees that have been in the system for a while. We call that validation. That's just a kind of an industry term called validation. And I coach my candidates to make sure they have many validation calls with as many franchisees as they can, to ask all sorts of questions and get a feel of what those franchisees' experiences have been. I even provide them a list of like 100 questions they can ask a franchisee in case they don't know what questions they can ask. And then the final thing is, a good franchisor will have that potential franchisee or candidate come out to their headquarters and tour the location, meet the executive staff, meet the owner, meet some franchisees, to get a kneecap to kneecap feel if they resonate with the culture. So that's the type of stuff that I make sure that my candidates go through the process.
So then that kind of leads me to the next question to ask is especially since you were also a financial advisor, what is something that you know now in terms of money and organization that you wish you would have known, 20 years ago?
When I graduated from college, I didn't know a whole lot about being a business owner. I kind of discovered, having a couple of jobs out of college, that I'm pretty much unemployable. I like to be in business for myself, but I didn't have those skills. And so coming out of college 20, 30 years ago, I wish that I would have taken more entrepreneur classes, or if they were available, or had more business owner friends or mentors. Really, a good business owner mentor would have really helped me out back then, because I learned from the School of Hard Knocks, and my scale to success was probably a little bit longer than it could have been if I had a mentor.
So I would totally agree with that, because I grew up and the people around me and my family were either teachers or in the medical profession, nurses, doctors. And so they were very much like, get the best paying job you can and keep your head down. And I remember watching, I think it was some movie about Wyatt Earp, and the quote that no man ever got rich working for another man.
Mm-hmm.
And that just stuck with me early on. And it was like, but if you don't grow up with that in your world, it takes a long time to break into that, to even be able to ask the right questions. Yeah,
that's for sure. And that's one thing I face, and maybe you face too, and not having a mentor, business owner mentor, is that when I discovered that business ownership, is just a clearer path for me, at least, to success and financial freedom and things like that. But most of my friends and my family members were employees. And so when I talked to them about business concepts, they would shut me down. And then I would have an identity crisis, like, what's wrong with me? Shouldn't I do what everybody else is doing? I just don't buy it. And if I had a mentor, they would have walked me through that and said, it's okay, Matt, you're part of the 10% of the people that wants to be a business owner, and you're okay for thinking that way.
No, I love that you brought that up because I think I've read like 5 or 10% of the population is wired that way. And when I was coming off of active duty, I just remember because I was deployed so much going, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. I got to try. I might try and fail, but I can't go sit in a cubicle hell for the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
But my family, though, they were terrified for me. Like, they're like, just get a good job.
Mhm.
And I was like, there's got to be more to life than just having a good job. So how do you talk to your franchisees about that idea? Because, you learn that as a business owner is that you can have a business or you can have a job.
Mhm.
And if you can't step away for your business for a month or so, you've got a job. You've just created a job for yourself. Do you have that conversation?
Oh yeah, all the time. That's one of the first things I do with my candidates is I want to find out what kind of role they want to have in the business. Two basic roles. One's the owner operator. That's basically owning your own job. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you don't have the free time that most business owners would want to have. But that's certainly a path. And then the other business ownership role is a semi-absentee or an executive owner. And that's where they hire a manager to manage the business for them. So they can step away and have that free time and only spend 5 to 15 hours a week on the business instead of having a full-time job in the business. So yeah, that's one of the first things that we discuss with the candidate on what role do they want to have.
Obviously with my military background and then business background, leadership is always a key, and leadership versus management. Do you get into any of that level of discussion with your people about, any business book you pick up, the better the culture and the leadership, then the better the business? Do you get into that?
Yeah, I do. I try to hire, when I hire people, I try to hire them, if they're going to be in a management role, I want them to be a leader as well. It's not just a person that can do operations. They have to be able to instill trust and have a good culture and a good vibe with their employees or with the rest of the team. I've learned the hard way that if the culture's not there, the employees are going to leave fairly quickly, even if you have a manager. And if you have a manager that's just hurting the culture even more, it's just going to be disastrous for your business. So that's one thing I focus on in my personal life, but also my candidates. I definitely share with them, it's important to be financially successful in your business, but really behind the scenes, here's how you do it. You got to make sure your employees and your managers are super happy with your business and they're excited to come to work. And people will work at a place for less money if they're excited to go to work there. It's not all about money. And so I really try hard to teach that to my team members so that they all feel that at the same time. And also my candidates so they can be successful in business too. People don't recognize that all the time.
I love that you say that because it's not all about money. And definitely, I think, abundance is much more than just money. And people will work, but everybody wants to be thanked. And like one of the things I know happens in my life, I have horses and I'll hire a farrier and I pay them their fee. But what I notice with almost every farrier I've worked with is after a few years, if I'm not thanking them and being appreciative, the quality goes down. I'm like, I'm still paying you. Why aren't you not doing the same quality of job? Because we're all wired for that to want to know. How do you coach your people though? If you hire good people, they're going to keep moving on. And like now I have an amazing virtual assistant and I'll be lucky to have her, but I know she's not going to be here forever. And I want to support her in that, and not say like, you need to stay with me. How do you teach people to handle that juxtaposition that can happen when you get good people?
Yeah, no, that's really, see, people don't talk about that a whole lot in business either. And it can be heartbreaking if you're not used to, if you're a new business owner and you experience somebody losing you, that can be really heartbreaking to you. You think it's your fault, whatever. So I prepare my candidates. I let them know, hey, listen, you're going to hire some quality people, but remember, life is not stagnant. These people they may move on. This may not be the end all be all for them. And if they want to move on to a different career or somewhere else, just if you have a great culture, be happy for them to do that. Just recognize you're not going to keep everybody forever because they have to advance in life, and so do you. And it's okay. Just plan on that happening. You're going to have some turnover. You just want to have as least the turnover as possible to keep people happy. But the expectation is that you will lose people, but lose them on good terms, not bad terms.
Right. I like one of the things that you may already know this, it was a tip that was given to me as part of the job for my assistants right now is to be creating the manual or checklist so that when they hire the next person, there's already like a great, like, here's how you do it. And but it's like with money, I've learned it's very little to do with math and so much to do with emotion. And you get that the EQ side of things, and then a lot of things fall into play.
Yeah.
So I guess one question before we wrap up is, what kind of person, or how would you have, if someone's listening to this and they want to go, maybe I was going to have a franchise, or maybe I was going to start my own business. What are kind of some considerations someone kind of goes through to see which camp they fall in, or do they just need to talk to you and kind of help sort through that?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to talk to them and help them sort through it. But, some questions a person can internalize is this. By the way, a lot of my candidates keep their jobs, and then they have a business on the side because they run it semi-absentee. So a person can't have the best of both worlds. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. But in considering owning a business, I like to have people consider, all right, am I willing to take on the finance? What if I lose all this money? Because that's worst case scenario. What am I going to do if I lose all this money? We don't want that to happen. That's not what want them to do. But they have to have a plan for that.
Right.
And if they don't, they're going to be pretty nervous and anxious the whole time, and it's not going to be a good experience for them. So that's one thing: is can a person live if they lose all that money? Don't invest more money than you can lose. Comfortable losing. So that's one thing that I want to make sure people feel comfortable with before they become a business owner. And then the other thing is, this business is going to be their baby, and it's their responsibility. And when it comes down to it, they've got to get the job done if nobody else can to be successful. So are they willing to take on that kind of commitment? They can structure things that they don't have to do everything if things fall apart. But worst case scenario, are they willing to take on the responsibility to treat this like their baby?
Right. So before we go, I've got two more questions. The first question I want to ask you is, if someone wants to get connected with you, what's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you?
So thanks for asking, by the way. The first way, or just email me. My email address is Matt, M-A-T-T, at learn2franchise.com. The 2 is a number 2, so learn2franchise.com. Just tell me something about yourself. Email me, and I'll catch it, and I'll be able to reply to you. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then I do have a bonus. I'm not sure if you're going to ask me about that yet, but I do have a bonus to offer people too.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question is do you have a bonus to offer for those folks listening today? Because that's always fun. Who doesn't like a bonus?
Right, I do. So I've written a book. It's called The 5 Proven Franchise Industries That Can Make You Wildly Successful. It's just a short ebook, probably 30 pages. It's easy read. Drink a coffee and read it. But it really fleshes out the top industries in the franchise space these days, just to see if any of them would interest you. So the way to get that is you go to the website. It's learn2franchiseebook.com. Just put your information in, and it'll automatically be sent to you.
That's excellent. So after we've talked about a lot of different things, and Matt, if you had one kind of takeaway that you'd want someone to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
I would say to always be open to different paradigms. And what I mean by that is, we talked about it earlier. If we were brought up as an employee, all of our friends and family are employees. If we can't change our paradigm, we're going to be an employee the rest of our life, and that may not be the best thing for us. So always be open to other paradigms, to look at other paradigms, and abundance. Think abundance.
Great. So I can't recap everything that Matt talked about today, but some of the highlights for me as a financial planner and also a real estate investor is, this idea of having more than one income stream, because that's holistically, you just don't ever want all of your eggs in one basket. I really like how Matt touched on risk, because, in finance, we talk about, you do that little questionnaire and it comes up whether you're conservative, moderate, or aggressive. I think the real question is, how much money are you actually willing and able to lose? Because we're all good with the upside. Everybody's okay with that. So I like that you bring that, because you really bring a sense of reality to the conversation. And then I like that, Matt, you're offering to show people, like, here's what's in the realm of possible, and have that conversation with people, because that's just exciting. Because if you don't grow up with it in your family and know about it, some of these things, they're available, but you just don't know what you don't know. So I really appreciate it, Matt. Thank you for sharing your insight and your ebook. We'll make sure that that's in the comments and people know about that. And I really enjoyed this conversation. So for those listeners out there, people watching, really excited to hear about your success, and be excited to know what you've gotten from this interview with Matt, because he's offered a lot of great information for you. And I look forward to our conversation and sharing a topic with you next time. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Tara. Bye, everybody.